Hey, Bernie, that last time we were talking and you mentioned like getting into a situation where you just felt like the worst was brought out of you. Somebody just, you end up screaming and yelling and you feel later like you just went out of control. And I want to talk about that because I do that same thing. There's certain situations where that seems to emerge, and I think we need to understand what it is. It's actually caused me trouble at times in my life. But it has to do with personality. Let's try to talk about a couple of things. First of all, I think what we're doing has been identified as early as the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish. What I'm going to do is bring up the description of Marduk, the called hero. That would be us from early on. If there's a personality type, that this is the person that's going to turn inward. And this is the only place I find this kind of detail from antiquity that describes some personality or some things that can be easily examined and looked at as personality traits. So let's go ahead, and everybody else, my name is Dan Paulson. I guess the video is this. Sometimes you just lose it with somebody and you scream, yell, that's happened at various times, and you might later go, God, why do I do that? Why do I handle it that way? Okay, let's get into why that happens. I think that there is something we need to take a look at, that there's something natural, but that there's something also that it's out of control. But if we understand it, I think we can manage it better. All right, let me bring this up from the Enuma Elish right here. All right, it's the Timothy J. Stephanie translation, if anybody cares. It's not important right now. That last video I did, some Jesus teachings. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Right here, there were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. Why? They are poor in spirit. They're poor. Blessed are the poor. This is early on. This is before we start taking on qualities and characteristics. So there we have it. No names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. Blessed are the poor in spirit. You have to know how to read these things. Okay. We're going to get down here to, okay, this is where Marduk emerges. Within the unsullied waters of the Apsu was Marduk born. That's where the Virgin Mary gave birth to Jesus, would be the same thing. Okay. What we have is Marduk is emerging, and it's going to start describing Marduk. When his grandfather Anu looked upon him, he was glad. His face shone greatly. Now, let me stop for a second and make sure to let you know what's going on. What's happening in this story so far is that this is a human life cycle. We emerge. Apsu is the creation of us. When we start off, the gods come about, they corrupt things, they need to be destroyed. If you were to look in the Bible, that's the same place where the sons of God have come down and corrupted the daughters of men, and the world needs to be destroyed. So we've got some parallel things that are happening here. So when Marduk is being called to make the destruction, if you were to parallel that with the Bible, that would be like, Noah, it's time for you to create the boat and for a destruction to happen. So Noah and Marduk are going to be holding the same place here on a human life cycle. That's when the inner pathway begins. You're Noah. You are Marduk, but only if you have the right brain. If you don't have the right brain, you can either worship it or deny it. Secret knowledge to the right brains. Okay. Enuma Elish, Marduk. Marduk's name is repeated exactly 41 times in the Enuma Elish. If we go to Genesis, then the Bible, King James Version, we're going to do the same thing. Let's come over here and take a look for Noah. There's a secret they don't teach you in Bible college. They don't know. They don't know the Bible. They don't know what's really in there. You have to have the right brain. This is where we have to isolate. Why are we this way? We do have these qualities. We will scream and yell sometimes. Why and when? Okay, what I'm going to do is get into this. Again, this is not, I don't find a description of this person anywhere, although we do find isolation. Moses is going to be put into a basket. Jesus is going to be taken to Egypt as a child. Jason is saved out as a child. There's always some sort of this isolation. And in this case, what we've got is, it's got a lot of detail. So it's describing him here, and we need to understand is that everything we're reading here are analogous terms, and they all mean something in the psyche, in the mind. That is the single biggest reason why people cannot understand religions and mythologies. They don't understand how it works. They think that's something physical. They don't understand it's a story built on a life cycle, a template. All right, so this is the person. This is going to be a personality type, and I believe it's going to be an INFP. It describes me, an introverted feeler that has high perception, super high perception, perceiving. All right, so it goes through and it describes things, but this is the part I want to talk about. Moreover, he possessed 4 ears to hear and 4 eyes to see. You'd look at that and go, well, that's pretty goofy. Nobody has 4 ears and 4 eyes. You just dismiss it. But when you know it's an analog, what you understand is that this is the eyes and the ears and all of that of perception, that you have a larger perception. You see more, you hear more, you perceive more. You drive down the road and you can see things happening a mile behind you and a mile ahead, while the other person, I'm just pulling from my past experience, working with people, trading off driving, while other people would be like, there was times I would think, why don't they see that happening and anticipate and do something different before we get into that? And at some point I realize I see farther, my awareness is different, and that is because I'm an introverted sensing perceiver that evolved to be that way. Outside the group, keeping an eye on things, highly sensitized to the environment. We evolved to be highly sensitive to the environment. More sensitive than other people. That's why they don't see this stuff. The 4 ears were also considered a voluminous size. Eyes were capable of perceiving anything. These are our perceptions. This is the eye. This is where, when Jesus says, clear the mote out of your eye, that's it right here. This is we've got all of, this is the eye of perception. His eyes were capable of perceiving anything, being unsurpassed among all the gods of exceptional build. This just means not physically strong. This means spiritually or mentally, nope, I've freaking had it. I'm done. I said this and that's it. I'm not going to, we don't deviate when we make a decision. We're very flexible up to a point where we make a decision. And then it's like when the decision is made, the flexibility stops. Having limbs which were mighty and a body terrifically tall. Then Anu cried, Mariutu, my son, you are the king of the gods. It's the one here, and red flames leapt forth whenever he opened his mouth. I don't find that description anywhere, but what is that? Open my mouth and red flames come out? Okay. All right, let's talk about some things here. For me, I kind of want to go back so far in time that I realize that now that we have evolved with different brain types optimized for a group to be safer as a group with variations of brain types. There's the mass of brain types are going to be very similar, and they're going to be very they just can't figure things out as much. Straight up, they can't. They got alpha males and females and things going on in there, the baby engine, the hunting and foraging, but we can't stand it in there because what is safer for that group instead of just being that way is to have people like us that are like, the sheepdogs, honestly. Outside the group, can't stand it. That's raucous as hell. I got a better capacity to see things. I evolved to be sensitive because now I'm the first line of defense, but I'm also the first thing that's going to get eaten. That lion stalking is looking at that group, but I'm way out here. So I'm very sensitive to the environment. I evolved to be sensitive to see, to hear, to sense, to all that kind of stuff. But also, as I'm looking at this group, whatever's happening in that group, I don't care. That's the group. I need that group. I need that group for survival. I eat there. I survive there as well. But I can't quite stand it unless I'm on the outside of them. Those are going to be introverted people. There's not as many of them. Why? Because look at the group. You don't need a bunch of introverts. You need a bunch of people that are extroverts with a few introverts. That's what we get. Look at the balance that there is. And here we are living through those. Okay, but what happens as you're watching that group? You are flexible as hell. That's the way I am. I'll let anything go. You guys do whatever you want to. But there's a point where watching that group where you see something happening that you're like, that's not okay for you. You kids, you whatever, there's a point where you suddenly do get involved, and the involvement that you put in there is not negotiable. It's like, okay, in the group, you guys negotiate, you do all kinds of stuff. I don't even involve myself in that. But if you come out here and I say, no, this is not negotiable. I see something you don't see. I am protecting your ass. And you don't know that. So we got this wired into us. This is going to somehow cause us issues later on. It is. But that is what is happening. You look at that and go, that would be a good thing. You bunch of monkeys in there, do whatever you want to. Do whoever you want to. You get out here, though, and I say, no, that's not good. There's a lion there, or there's a cliff there, or something there. This is no joke. My say is final. When I say something, and I don't say very much, when I do, you better listen, because it's dead serious. That's how our brains work. That's not how our society works. I experienced this directly in a long work environment where I was traveling for many years actually in twos. We had to work in pairs, and we were, going out in the remote, way out in the wilderness, in the desert, on ATVs and things like that, working on isolated equipment out there and stuff. So we had to be in pairs. But you're always working with somebody then, and there was nobody that ever had a brain type like mine. At some point in time, listen carefully, you're spending 8 to 12 hours a day in a vehicle with this person traveling the country. Then you get out and you're working together at various places. But everywhere you're going, all these things that are out there, you're driving all day long. So it's just the two of you in a vehicle. You spend more time with that coworker, with a single coworker, than you will spend with your own spouse. And you didn't pick them. And you know what? Personality clashes are going to happen. There's just no way around it. The people that got along the best, honestly, were the people that were the dullest. The ones that I could not function with because they were just, girls, yeah. They functioned very well together. I did not. This is where I began to understand things. Like you're driving down the road and you see something happening. You're in a big, vehicle and you're pulling stuff with you and things like that. And you're very anticipatory. You can see things coming, terrain changes, vehicles. You're looking at how to negotiate from the passenger seat, wondering why this person is just staring at the taillights of the vehicle in front of them. They're not seeing things. And you're beginning to realize, I'm seeing things that this person doesn't even, it's not a part of their awareness. I remember harassing a guy one time about it, and he got mad at me, and he teased me about it a couple of times later. It's old times now. But I said something like that to him. I can't remember what it was, but it was like, man, why did you let us get stuck here? You could see this situation happening a mile back there. And now we're stuck in this block over here that you could have anticipated. You just drove right into it. Anyway. So things like that are going to happen. If you don't work in situations like that, you won't see it emerge. But you can start seeing differences in the personality. So my current wife is an introvert. We're both introverts. This is what we have to it. It'll be something like this. Where do you want to eat dinner tonight? Oh, I don't care. It's up to you. You pick something. Oh, I don't care. It's up to you. Oh, I don't care. It's up to you. There's this point where there's the easygoing nature becomes, you have to understand at some point, just pick something because you're going to do that all night. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay. To other people, it really does matter. There's a point though where I'm working with people and they want, can we stay here? Can we stay there? Can we go here? Can we go there? Whatever it is. As we're traveling along, I was the lead. So I would say, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. I was very flexible on what we did. But there was times I would say, no, not this, not that, or something. And I would put a foot down. And I can remember one guy getting into it with me one time. And he was like, you know what? You're such an asshole. Nobody ever tells you what to do. Nobody ever does. But you're like all the time telling people, telling people what to do and how to act and things like that. What is your problem? And I had to think about that for a little bit. And then I finally realized this. My value systems are this wide. Yours are this wide. I am never violating your value systems. You are constantly violating mine. I get bothered as you're ogling the young teenage girls in the bikinis, car wash, summertime kind of stuff. And it's like, I got daughters like that. And I don't feel like, no, I would like to go do this to them or something like that. There's a point where you go, I've had it. That shit is not okay. And they don't get that. They think you're stuck up. There's something wrong with you. You think you're better than them, all that stuff. And you're sitting there going, fuck. The average human's a box of rocks. And they will call you an arrogant, stuck-up piece of shit for not going pervert with them. Yeah, it's tough. And they don't get it. Then you become the enemy. All right, so we got to understand something. All right, so where are we going with this here? The situation happens in this case. You get into an argument with somebody, and soon it's elevated into this thing that is like, it's not like an argument back and forth. It is a very extreme, very powerful, visceral argument, facial sensation. It's like violent when you get to that point. All right, so I'll tell you that I'm on my third marriage. It is my final marriage. My wife and I are both INFPs. But I can tell you that when I first started out in my first marriage, you approach things the best you're trying. I stayed in that marriage for a long time when it was not okay. We have a habit of staying in bad relationships. I got stationed overseas and my wife got pregnant by somebody else. It was probably 4 years past that before we got a divorce. Things never got better. They only got worse. Today, she is married to an evangelical. She's a Trump supporter, and she and her husband, she did the same thing to her second husband. She cheated on him as well. They're evangelicals, and they give classes on how to be good families, how to have good marriages. Yeah, think of that. All right, so I don't need to get into that story except to start painting a picture of a sequence of life events that happened for me. Because I did go through marriages, I went through stages. However, after that divorce, somehow I just went off on my own. I went on a search. I was like hurting my I had so many things that were a problem in my life, from the childhood abuse, the molestation. I had everything trapped in. Nothing had escaped from me at that point. I was just really in bad shape. I got a DUI one night, closing down a bar with some buddies of mine. I drove through a stop sign without coming to a complete stop at 2:30 in the morning. What do you think's going to happen? Yeah, you've been drinking? Sure enough, yeah. At that point, I'm like, man, life sucks. What am I doing? Why am I here? Should I join Larry? There are times I considered. I remember thinking, it's a good thing I never owned a gun. There's a time or two in a drunken stupor, I'd have probably used it for the last time. Anyway, for 8 years, I had a job, and for 8 years, I was single. I stayed out of relationship. I had some girlfriends along the way, but mainly I was kind of just on my own, doing my own thing, kind of figuring out stuff. And that's when I learned about letting things go. It was a story of how to heal. I don't want to get into that whole big one. It's old stuff. But anyway, I learned that I needed to start offloading this stuff that I had trapped inside. So I told a friend of mine about the molestation. It was very difficult. Nobody had ever heard about that before, but I had trapped it for so long. And when my friend said, really? That's it? That bothers you? It's okay. There's no big deal. I mean, that happens to a lot of people. At that moment, I cannot tell you what happened. It was like 2 weeks before I felt like my feet touched the ground again. It was like, why am I carrying this stuff? At that moment, I learned something very powerful. No matter how bad it hurts, if you want to feel better, you rip it off. Take it off. You open it up and go. That's where you got to be, that Marduk. Fuck it. I don't care if it bothers me. I'm tired of my life the way it is. I'm going to go after it anyway. And if you don't like it and you think I'm creepy for it, so what? You get to that point. That's that person right there. Okay, that's why they're describing Marduk that way. You're the one that says, piss on it. I'm sick of this. I'm tired of my life. So I did go through some changes, and I met somebody and we got married. That lasted a lot longer, had some children. Eventually, it also did not work. And the first marriage, though, there was incredible fidelity issues. In this case, I had resolved that, and what happened next in this one was incredible finance issues. That the finance just was collapsing no matter what I did. We were going to be below broke, and I could not live that way. But it was a different kind of relationship altogether. I didn't replicate the first relationship, but for 8 years, I've been going through some healing. I became a different person. So I didn't attract the same kind of person again. My mom had been cheated on by my biological father quite a bit. There's something rolling along in energy in the background that we don't know about. There's processes that are happening that we're blind to unless we observe life. Unless we observe what is, if we understand that everything that happens, that manifests in the physical world is being driven by some energy first, then we can interrupt the energy before the manifestation. But you have to look and see that the manifestation is happening over and over again. You interrupt future cycles by understanding that they're there. It's a long process. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to do that. Anyway, that marriage eventually ends, and it's a long time again before my marriage, I was thinking I'm never going to get married again. It's not worth it. You can have a girlfriend for a while, and when things go bad, you go your separate ways. I learned something else then too, that when you are by yourself, you can heal things. And then you get into a relationship, there could be relationship things that are going to emerge they're not going to come up when you're not in a relationship. So suddenly you're with somebody going, I was happy. Now what the hell is this with me and you going on here? Well, there's something wrong there. But what's happening is the conflicts that we're bringing with us are, unbeknownst to us, are triggering again. Now this is what you got. Now this is what you got. Now this is what you got. If you keep healing, you're going to keep running into stuff along the way. Okay, so there was a girlfriend I had at some point in time before this marriage that that actually, it's hard to describe, but she was definitely, once the biochemical reactions wore off, the relationship became kind of toxic in a way. And she was very demanding and controlling, and she would belittle me and degrade me. And I would be like, what is that? Why do you do that? But we'd be like in hiking groups or something like that, and everybody, oh, she's so friendly, everybody love her. Then you get off someplace and it was like she's got a relationship self and something else. But at some point I'm looking at this going, okay, she's my fucking mom. There's something that isn't dealt with yet. I'm a stupid kid again. I'm not doing it right. There's something that I don't have resolved from childhood yet. And it was that stuff. There were things that I'm being raised in an abusive environment. Your brother hangs himself to go to heaven. Yeah, he wants to get out of it. You're getting whipped. Your welts, chest to thighs, leg, all over. You would just get whipped with somebody out of control. Oh, it was really not okay. And you're being told how stupid, you're never going to amount to anything. There's stuff that gets wired into your head. At some point, you're thinking to yourself later, okay, that is bullshit. All that stuff was bullshit. I'm fine. But yet, nevertheless, something is still happening. What happens is this. There's memories that are stored that are seeds. They're not acknowledged. If you've had something happen, you put it away, and then later on you go, oh, okay, I don't need to worry about that. It might not heal it. You might have to go, here's how you figure it out. Put yourself in your memory, go back and address yourself. I would do this. I would say, okay, I got some issues in here. I'm not sure what's going on. I think I'm okay. I told myself I'm okay. But there were parts of my previous experiences that had never been acknowledged. So I would remember a situation at school, in grade school, after my brother had hung himself, and I'm being told, kids are kind of mean. And I remember sitting among the sword ferns in the woods, curled up fetal position, crying there. And I would go back and I would remember that. And as soon as I remember that, I would be like, oh God, it would be like I cried. Or like in Sunday school, right after Larry had died, right after he hung himself, they tried to give me a birthday party because it was just a couple weeks later. And I was devastated. No, I had no idea. Nobody's talking to me. There's no counseling. There's no nothing. They give me a birthday party and I'm just bawling. And I remember asking him, are you doing this just because Larry died? You don't give anybody else birthday parties. I was bawling. I was so upset. But I remember going back to those memories and experiencing them again. I would start crying. It was like, oh man, I'm telling myself I'm okay, but there's memories back there that are stored away that have not been acknowledged. And so what I would do is I called it ghost hunting. I would start just thinking of my memories. Oh, there's something happened over here. Oh, I feel embarrassed about that. I need to rethink this over here. You start going through these processes in your mind and your memories, pulling them up and feeling the emotional state, and then re-examining them until that emotional state goes away is what you have to do. You can't just sit there and say, okay, I'm going to let it all go. There's stuff stored up here that if it keeps happening, you didn't let it go. Consciously you let it go. You want to let it go, but there's things that are stored in there like little viruses that you have to actually go after. You observe them by watching what happens. Whatever happens in the physical world is being driven by something. When you learn to recognize what manifests, you will know what drives it. Learn to recognize what is, that whole thing. Okay, so where am I going with it? The screaming, the yelling, the stuff like that. Okay, so I remember the screaming and yelling with that person. And I remember a friend of mine I was talking to at that time. And he said, Dan, I've always thought that in a relationship, the person you're with should bring out the best in you, not the worst. And I was like, Innes, that's some damn good advice. And there's a point where I have to examine. I've done a lot of work. I'm still not figuring things out. I don't know what the problem is with this relationship, but eventually I step back far enough to go, yep, I've got these issues still that are unresolved. And that's why I'm hooking into relationships like this that fit this way, because this person fits what needs to trigger that I need to see, that I need to heal from. Or if I don't see it, I'll just go experience that and think I'm a stupid piece of shit over and over again. Or, and this is a possibility, although it wasn't my experience, I've heard other people say, man, I'm done with guys. They're all this way. I'm done with girls. They're all this way. They always something. There's something that you're bringing with you that's constantly being triggered, that's not being resolved. In my case, every relationship I went to was different because I resolved something between each one of them. So I could see now, looking back on it, I'm living Genesis without knowing it, without reading it, without studying it. It's just happening. It's an automatic process for some people. So those things have to happen. I don't know how that works with anger. Okay, so let me tell you another story. I blew up like that at somebody that I was not in a relationship with, but I was renting a house. I was single at that time, and a younger friend from a hiking club was down and out and needed a place to stay. It's like, man, I'm traveling all the time. I'm gone all the time. I got a 3-bedroom house and I'm staying in one room. There's a couple spares. You can stay there. And the person was going to they were going to get on their feet, had a job, things like that. There was all this opportunity. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. Our personality is also very easy to take advantage of. We believe people quite readily. Anyway, so over time, what happened is that it just got to be where the person was like, I'd come home and buy some real nice food or something like steaks and things and have it in the fridge. And the person would help themselves to the food and then replace it with, after going to like the Mormon help mission or something like that, come back with like number 10 tins of instant mashed potatoes or something. Is here, I'll replace your steak with this number 10 tin of instant mashed potatoes. And you're like, no, it became so problematic that I finally began to realize, okay, this person, they take advantage of people. They live off of them. That's what they were doing before. And the person was like, I'm done with it. Then they moved to me and now I'm getting done with it. You don't see that right up front. As I'm telling the person, you got to go, I'm sorry, it didn't work out. And they're fighting, they're arguing, they're doing everything they can to keep their hooks in. There's a point where I explode. I don't do anything violent, but the person is like, step back like, oh my God, are you going to kill me? It's like, there's a point where you're like, you know what? This is non-frickin' negotiable. This is not healthy for my life existence. You are hurting me. You're not hurting the group, but you're hurting me, which is like hurting the group. My brain is designed to make sure things are okay. You are in here now, helping yourself, but hurting me in the process. You got to go. No, I don't want to. You got to go. No, I don't want to. Get the fuck out. It goes that quick. It's like, this is not freaking negotiable, but that's what's happening. And you're sitting there going, man, I don't know how to manage this thing. But with the relationships, the triggering, all of it comes in like that. The personality, the anger, I think is going to naturally be there. But I'm sure we all know instances too of hearing people that are like, well, so-and-so is doing this and they won't leave. They won't get out. I can't do this. I can't get my way. And you would be listening going, why don't you just step in and so we're kind of like the opposite of the person that's going to just be, take advantage of me. But once I learn that you've lied, it's done. You don't get to do it again. You're out of here. Or once there's a problem established, I'm not going to continue to be the person that you to do that with. Anyway, okay, so really there's a couple of things. Number one, there's a wired in. It's very strong and it's very visceral. Imagine you've got a group you're protecting and it's got kids and everybody's having fun and they're lollygagging around and things are good, they're foraging and things like that, and you're on the outskirts and suddenly you see a lion sneaking up and you let that group know, run! It is that right there. And they better be like, whoosh, because it's life or death. We evolved with that. That is what is driving it is that. Is it bad? You know what? The person got out. I was like, you know what? When you dread coming home to your own home because the person's going to be there, you're like, oh my God, yeah, no, it's not okay. So, we've got that Marduk sort of fire, flames from the mouth kind of thing going on. There's a few things that play into this, but then also there's the social things, growing up conditioned. You're an empty program. You're an empty organic automaton when you're born, except that you have a basic program. You're going to have a brain type and some characteristics, some DNA qualities and things like that. There's some things that you're born fixed with. But beyond that, your memory and your experiences are going to be developed. And there's going to be a lot in there. This is going to show up in the material in this way. Watch this. Right here in the Tao Te Ching, in the Gia Fu Feng translation, naming is the mother of 10,000 things. The way this one works is that this is us. The unnameable is the eternally real. That would be the same thing as saying, blessed are the poor in spirit. Unnameable. Poor, you're devoid of things in your memories. Unnameable, you have not made mental decisions. Naming is the origin of all particular things. That means I have learned this. I now know this. It is a memory. The named, in this translation, the named is the mother of 10,000 things. That's just an analogous term. How many memories are you going to have? The named is the mother of 10,000 things. Whatever you decide upon, that's going to be what it is. I'm not going to put the Buddhas on the screen. I don't have it on my computer, but from the Max Mueller Dhammapada, Buddha's core teaching, very first verse, and the dual verses, twin verses, right up front, the very first comment. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It's founded on our thoughts. It's made up of our thoughts. Very plain language. This is what we're after. If we go to the King James Version of the Bible, we're going to go to the beginning of each one of these where God is going to be telling people this is your land. And these are sequencing start points where you're starting over in life again. Where I admitted to being molested. So there was a healing, and then I start over again. But what do you have? You have a new land. The land is you. Here's what God is putting Abram and Sarai into the land of Canaan. And he says, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, unto your seed I will give this land. Unto your seed I will give you this land. What that means is, unto your memories I will give this mind, this experience. If we were to look in chapter 17, there's a sequence change. Abraham. That's a conversion and a start begins. What happens in verse 7? And I will establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you and their generations for an everlasting covenant for you and your seed after you. This means all of your memories afterwards. If we continue to move down, we get to chapter 22 and verse 17. That in blessing I will bless you, and in multiplying I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heaven and as the sand which is upon the seashore. This is your memories. These are going to be your memories, accumulation of memories. Okay, so no big deal there. I just keep practicing doing that stuff, making sure I know what's going on and continue to find things. So all of the material is bringing us to that same thing, that you're a pile of memories. How's your life? Sort memories. You want your life to change, you're a pile of your memories. And they come in perceptions. As you go through monomyths, you're going to find things like whoever the bad person is, they're going to get trapped away, they're going to get put under the sand, rocks, sent off, something like that. Whatever the cyclical pain element that is represented, you'll see that it doesn't get killed. You will see that it gets trapped and rendered inert. That's because that is the memory. That represents the memory being healed. I still have this memory, except guess what? I was molested and it used to be an enemy. Now I was molested and guess what? It has no power. It's trapped away. I still have the memory, but it is no longer damaging. So if you go through the material, you'll find things like that. And that's what that means. Though this is your pile of memories, and the bad thing is the bad memories, or the bad bundle of memories. In some cases, destroying a city means destroying your early self. Flooding out the world means flooding out your early self. Typically, what we're going to be doing is flooding out an issue at a time. I don't look at my life and go, you know what, I'm just going to wash out my childhood completely. Nope, I've got to wash out the pain of this, the pain of that, these things, all this entire sand of the beach. There's a lot of stuff to do. Okay, so there's memories, but there's also programmed drive that makes us different. You can't look at people and say, how come some people are one way and some people are another? There's going to be multiple reasons. Personality is one. Also, whatever they get wired from. You could have somebody with a good personality, but they've been treated so badly that they don't know how to act except to be that way. People like me are very fortunate that we find pathways through things. But the anger, yeah, it's one, I don't know that you can curtail it. It's one, I think the more I'm aware of it, the more that I am that way, but I still am very fixed. There's still a point where that it's a go-to. There's an instinctual thing there that if there's something that has to be a certain way, of course, it's not telling other people anything anymore. It's about my life, my personal life. I don't do that. I'm not a Karen or a Ken or whatever those are. I don't go around bossing other people, although I run into those. We all probably do. But as far as the real violent anger like that, I think if you're on a path, there's something to look at with respect to personality that I think is there for a reason, and that it's being probably misused today because we're not using it to warn the group, but we're using it to actually protect ourselves, probably. It's kind of morphed into something but it just sounds violent like that. And if you're in a situation where you're feeling that happening and you're being degraded, belittled, demeaned, being put down or something like that, you know where to go to? Go where you were conditioned and you were degraded, belittled, and demeaned, and find that ghost early self and make sure that ghost early self knows that it's okay. Today, you know it's okay. You're like, okay, I can let that go. But if you go back to your memories, you're going to find something back in there that might be like, if you bring it up, you might feel it's going to be an emotion. Just watch the emotion, surf the emotion, bring up the memories. How does it feel? Nah, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Ooh, I feel embarrassed by this one. I feel shame. That one makes me angry. That's it right there. You've found the problem. And you're using your higher awareness, your consciousness, your healing. This is the altar. You're going back and readdressing those memories and looking at them in a variety of different ways until you can separate yourself from it and realize it's a memory, it's a life experience that was necessary for me to come about and become an existing human being on this planet. I had no choice where I came from, and nobody treated me that way on purpose. It's just the way the flow of life is, and I need to figure that out and let go of it. And as we go back and do that, you still have to go back and find your memories. I could sit there and say, I'm fine. I'm okay. I've let all that stuff go. And then go back and find a memory that I bring up, and suddenly I'm crying. It's like, oh, what is that? I thought I let that go. So you just take your adult self, look at your early self, and update the memory. That was stored right there as a confused thing, boom, put away. It has never been updated. Meanwhile, your life has been going on. So now you're taking your life, going back and updating that memory and saying, hey, little Danny, it's going to be okay. And it goes, poof, yeah, I got it. It just had to be acknowledged. So that's for healing. As far as telling somebody that's degrading, belittling, or demeaning you to get the fuck out, go for it. just Words are fine. I mean, at some point, I don't know what to say. When you're kind of in self-defense mode, what are you going to do? What do animals do if they're threatened? They don't sit back passively. It's fight or flight. Who's going to win? I'm not going to sit here and thrust and parry with somebody all day about something that I've already said I'm done with it. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to move on. I don't care about you anymore. The time for that is past. Go. Find somebody else. They're doing what they're programmed to do. You're doing what you're programmed to do. These two programs don't fit. But that program will nevertheless try to leech off of you or anybody. It's not you. Anybody. Yeah, that's the way that program runs. All right, I hope this was helpful. I don't know where else to go with it. I think these are things that if we were sitting around having a conversation, we could figure it out much better, kind of discuss things or whatnot. I've had a lot of experience that I know that, yeah, I've looked back at times and thought, God, I wish I had done this. I wish I didn't scream. Wish I hadn't done that. A lot of that had to do with childhood unresolved issues. Yet at the same time, it was being driven by something very strong that people would go, why do you act that way? But I'm also the kind of person that would be in church going, how come Jesus didn't make it heavily laden with figs instead of kill the tree altogether? There's something going on in our brain that is just going to be different than other people. Let it fly. Let it wander. The imagination's a wonderful place to be. That's where Einstein figured out relativity. All right. See you next video.